glad you've been able to join us. I am going to do a quick bit of history, grounding for us, and walk us quickly through the agenda, recognize just some great partners. Okay, so Maria, I wasn't quite ready for that, if it's okay. It's really helpful to see folks for another minute. Thank you. So I want to just give you a very quick thumbnail of Solar Faithful. This really, the successes you're going to hear today. We've had 5 or 6 solar installations. They've used this LLC model with congregants and nonprofit folks as investors. We have been successful in piloting the LLC model, the power purchase agreement, the solar installation agreement. There are templates for those legal documents. But I really want to call out and recognize 2 folks in particular, well, everybody, but I really want to recognize Murray Rosenthal, wave Murray, there's Murray, and David Lewis. David's hosting this. They have done a fantastic job of bringing a large group of investors together at Genesis, which you'll hear about. And honest to God, take the hat off. They have documented their whole process. So we really are able to offer you a bit of a how-to to leverage, again, this investor model that we settled in on. I can't help but recognize folks. Diane Cheklich is a real solar expert and advocate out of the Detroit area and has been a resource to many of the teams, has a small consulting business. She has been an ACE resource for many of the Ann Arbor projects. I'm just going to say Scott, Jan are both leading solar installations with their entities. Jennifer, Michigan IPL. Michigan IPL has been an important partner, and quick show of hands, do folks know Michigan IPL? Interfaith Power and Light, a little bit? Okay. It's a national nonprofit, works at the intersection of faith and ecology. I'm a past board president. We're going to look to Michigan IPL to be at least one of the repositories of lots of solar faithful resources. And they will also be within the Ann Arbor Resource Network. And we'll get to that later. Okay. This all started, oh gosh, late 2017. Ann Arbor got a nice little grant from Department of Energy to go see if they could come up with a model for solar. Lots of those grants around the country. We came out top 8. Of the 120 pilots the DOE kicked off, Ann Arbor was recognized in the top 7 or 8 for the model you're going to hear about today. There's a toolkit that we're going to make available to you that I just want to mention really quickly. I'm sure all of you guys know this. Solar Faithful, any solar work has got to be preceded by improving the energy efficiency of your buildings. You got to go around that block. You got to get yourself up a learning curve, do the energy audit, tick through the list to get the energy demand in your building down. Then come in with solar to meet some portion of that lower load. Jan, I just got an email from you. So you'll see a resource list for Michigan anyway on a number of resources for solar. We have got kind of a solar installation 101 sort of guideline sheet, a question and answer sheet. All of that will be available. Okay, again, stay on mute because there's some echo showing up. Okay, let me take 2 seconds and jump through the agenda now, Murray, and then we'll go to our first presentation. So can we go back to the agenda now, Murray? There it goes. And there it is. Okay, so we just did all that first bit. All of this starts, and Murray will talk about this, but starting with your electricity bill gives us an indication, gives you an indication of what your load is and what some very initial sizing of a solar system might be. That really gets us out of the gate, gets you out of the gate. So like I said, today is all about success stories. It's very exciting. You'll be hearing from House of Worship, HOW leaders, and nonprofits. We're going to start with Genesis. Like I said, Murray and Dave. We're going to go to the Ozone House, which is a nonprofit. Jan Culbertson's been the critical player there. Scott Nelson's going to tell you about the solar installation at Seventh-day Adventist. Diane has now taken the model. Again, I guess I should have said this. Up front, we explored a whole lot of models on how to support solar on houses of worship. The one that came out very clearly was what we call the investor model. By getting a group of investors, typically from the congregation or wherever, setting up a LLC, funding the solar project that way enables, this is the key, enables the LLC to leverage the federal tax credit on renewable energy. As a nonprofit, you can't do that, but the LLC as a separate entity can. That tax credit is now in the process of tapering down. It had been 30%, it's currently at 26%, will continue to taper. Now, I know firsthand how slow decision-making processes in a house of worship can be, but you are up against that taper now. And all we can hope for is a November election, a shift in a more favorable national policy toward solar. But recognize this model is built on leveraging the federal tax credit. And it'll taper and continue to taper the next couple years, and then it will be out. So that's a really critical foundation piece. All right, I'm going to keep going. Diane will do the condo story. She's taken this investor model to her condominium association. One of our early successes was Diane's installation at a Ferndale church. Like I said, Michigan IPL has got some good solar work going on. Jennifer will tell us about. And then Julie Roth will be telling us about some great work underway in Ann Arbor. We're going to protect some time for Q&A and just wrap it up, hopefully by 3:20 with some next steps. All right, let's go back to pictures for a minute. There. All right, everybody good with that? Thumbs up? Yes? Go? Okay. Murray, David, yours. Oh, so let's see, Dave, you confirm it. If someone has a burning question, put it in the chat room. And who will volunteer among the team to monitor the chat room?
David, you're on mute.
I will keep an eye on the chat.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, David. All right, Murray, David, your nickel.
All right. So just a second, I'm going to minimize this so I can see.
You guys have
20 minutes.
20 minutes, and it is 1:17.
All right. So this presentation is both by David and myself. David's an architect. I'm actually a chemist, but we're both with Genesis of Ann Arbor. So this is what I want you guys to do. You're either a church leader or you're someone who wants to talk to your church leader about getting solar on your institution or your condo or your nonprofit. But this is what I want you to do. So schedule a Zoom meeting with yourself if you're a leader. Let's say, we can get solar installed on our building at no cost, no donations, no loans, no payments, except a regular electricity payment using this investor model. What's in it for me? Learn how to get solar on your house of worship. There's 3 parts to my presentation today, to our presentation. The first part is what we did. The second part is very important, and I want to stress that with a quote from that famous American patriot, Jerry Garcia. Somebody has to do something, and it's just incredibly pathetic that it has to be us. And the third part is how we did it. And this is what's important to you, because if we could do it, you could do it. So here's what we did. Once upon a time, there was a group of two congregations that decided that they could share the same building. And this is unique. This is the only institution that we know of in the United States where two congregations, two diverse congregations, have gotten together and essentially bought a building. So the first institution is St. Clair's Episcopal Church. The second institution is Temple Beth Emeth. And the overarching organization, Genesis, they promote the relationship between the two congregations, and they're in charge of running the building. But both congregations maintain their separate identities to worship, but St. Clair's on Sunday and Temple Beth Emeth on Friday night and Saturday. We also have a church that rents our social hall on Sunday. And we have a preschool in the building during the week. So 4 in 1, 4 institutions in one, that saves energy right there. About 5 years ago, we formed the Genesis Green Committee. And we have this vision or motto, it's called Genesis Greening, building to reduce carbon emissions altogether. That's a double entendre. And here's what we did. Just starting in December, we started construction of our solar installation. The building on the left is our social hall. We have 80 panels there. The building on the right is the office roof. It's a slanted gabled roof. There are 80 panels on that roof. So 160 panels, 64 kilowatts, 400 watts per panel. It's going to generate 31% of our consumed power, although our building is closed right now. So we're putting electricity back on the grid, which is unfortunate, but we didn't foresee that, but that's the way it is. Went live on February 4th. Here's pictures on the left. That's the slanted roof. In the center, the 80 panels on the social hall, and we didn't have to drill holes. They're weighted down with concrete blocks. And on the right is the generation in March, first part of March. So you can see some days are sunny, some are not so sunny, but that's our generation. Now, solar panel installations cost money, and it's really a lot of money for a house of worship or nonprofit. And the Green Team, back 4 or 5 years ago, we considered lots of ways to do this. We looked at loans. We looked at starting a capital campaign. We looked at just asking congregates for donations. But what we've finally settled on and what worked for us, and I think it'll work for you, is the investor model. And we formed an LLC. Why do we need the LLC? As Jane mentioned, to take advantage of the 30% federal tax credit, which is now decreased to 26%, and also the depreciation of the panels. Here's our model. The LLC we named Eastover, bought the panels and paid for the installation. The Eastover owns the panels for now, and Genesis agrees having them on the roof and using the generated power. Eastover LLC investors will get a 30% tax credit. That's not a deduction, that's actually a credit. So 30% of their investment they will get back in their taxes this year for 2020. And this is what we charge. We charge Genesis 11.5 cents a kilowatt, and we're currently paying Detroit Edison, DTE, 12.5 cents. So the investor model, Eastover, we had 20 congregates came together from about half from each congregation to form Eastover LLC. Again, this is a picture of our building from before the panels were installed, and you can see at the top left is we're located on the corner of Eastover Place and Packard Street in Ann Arbor. So that's not where the Eastover Power LLC name came from, but in the true spirit of Genesis, it's a contraction of Easter and Passover. All right, why we did it. Global warming. That's why we're all here today, to do something to save the planet. For us specifically, we wanted to reduce the carbon footprint of our building. We wanted long-term energy costs, savings, dollars, and we wanted to increase our property value. Now, David and I would have done this whether or not there was a positive payback. You can see here, this is a small building we have in front of our building. It's the backdoor food pantry, and we service over 200 people who need food on a weekly basis. So there's no payback on that. We do it anyway. We do it because it's the right thing to do. And that's really the attitude you need here. I know everybody will be looking at the dollars and cents, but in the long run, we're doing this to save the planet. How we did it. So the focus today is the investor model, and this is the disappearing tax credit. You'll see it'll go down to 22% next year, and then after that, it goes down to 10. And so you really need to take action soon. So we have an 18-step process. I know that sounds like a lot, but you can skip some, you'll be able to skip some of the steps most likely, and some of the steps are really easy. So I'm going to go through some of these really quickly. The first step I'm going to go through in detail. The other 17 I'm going to breeze right through in the interest of time. So you have to get initial buy-in. So talk to your lay leaders, your elders, your board members about your idea in general terms. Get their initial buy-in. Make them that offer they can't refuse. So tell them they can get solar installed. No donations, no loans, no payments, using the investor model. Tell them about similar success stories at other buildings. And we're going to hear from some of those today. Here's a summary of 6 installations in the Southeast Michigan area. This covers 489 panels, or about $400,000 in investment. And you can see, if you look down at the LLC number members line, that a lot of them were just one investor, but Genesis was by far the biggest, 20. So if you need to, invite an expert who has done this before. We're willing to come and talk, hopefully in person when this virus thing ends, but we can do it by Zoom. And tell your leaders it's just an idea for now. We're just going to explore this. And then ask them, may we proceed? And they're going to say yes. Now, Genesis had a caveat that one of the congregational boards wanted us to extend the opportunity to all members of both congregations, and only members of the congregations could be part of the investor group. They just wanted to keep it in-house, but that's what we did. You don't have to. You can find somebody with deep pockets. Somebody who's not a member of your congregation can fund this. We want to stress is an altruistic investment. They're not going to make a lot of money. They will make some money eventually, but for now it's altruistic. So step 1 is done. Steps 2 to 18 are next. Don't worry, we have a document, a how-to, H-O capital W document that we will be glad to share with you. And we will try to get that posted on the MIPL website too, so that it's there for you to peruse. So step 2, form a green team. Hold a meeting of your green team. Check your roofs. Step 3, the roofs count. You also want to know how much electricity you're using. And by the way, in the invite, I told you to bring sunshine today. You did a great job, at least here in Michigan. It's really sunny today. Thanks. You don't want to put solar panels on a horrible roof, which some people have already stated in the pre-chat there. You need to replace your roof first, and we did that. The roof on the gabled office building was replaced a few weeks before we put the panels on. Step 4, get quotes. So we recommend you get 3 or 4 quotes. It's a big investment, and you'll get a lot of information in the quoting process and maybe some different ideas. And let's shoot for the moon. Let's get as many panels on our roof as we can to generate as much electricity as we can. One caveat, you don't want to generate too much. You don't want to be putting money back on the grid like we're doing right now because our building's closed. And your solar installers will be able to answer all these questions: how many panels, how much power, how much you're going to be generating per month, and how much you'll be saving.
Hey, Murray, we're just past halfway for you, just FYI.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting there. So, step 5, state your intention to find investors to the board. They will say yes. Step 6, find your investors. Word of mouth communication is best, but you can put articles in the bulletin. You can advertise all number of ways. You can make announcements at services for investors. Step 7, after you find your investors, provide the details, have an investor meeting, go over this. We actually had 4 meetings with our investors before this actually happened. And stress with your investors, again, it's altruistic investment. We wanted to create a long-term win-win agreement, and it's called a power purchase agreement, or PPA, and I'll be talking about the PPAs. And it's really a win-win agreement for both the LLC, which will make a little money over the long run, and the house of worship or nonprofit, which will save a lot of money over the long run. So this is a PPA. At Genesis, we decided the minimum investment was a $5,000 bill, and to get up to 120 with 20 investors, we needed some of the investors to invest more, and they did, 10,000, 15,000, some of them. You can analyze our system, and there's this energy tool base, which Diane Cheklich ran for us. She's going to speak a little bit later, and it just goes over the numbers. From those numbers, we used to create the power purchase agreement. Step 9, set up the LLC. Michigan, it costs $50, and just about anyone can do it. You'll need a tax ID number too. Step 10, create the LLC operating agreement. That's the agreement between the investors to form the LLC. Solar Faithful has 3 template documents. One is that document we just talked about, the document to set up the LLC. They also have a template power purchase agreement, which we used. And there's also agreement between the installer and the LLC. You may not need that one. The installer will probably have their own contract. Okay, step 11, have the investors sign a subscription agreement, just committing them to the money they're going to invest. Step 12, open a bank account for the LLC. Step 13, select your installers from your many bids that you got. And step 4, finalize the PPA. And you can see here that unlike our electricity provider, DTE, we are not increasing our rates over the next 20 years. We're keeping it at 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And DTE just announced an increase. So the 12.5 cents that we're paying right now is going to go up in the next few months. So that's going to be a great savings there, because DTE will raise their rates just about every year. And there's a system production estimate. It goes down about 0.5% each year because the panels age. And the monthly solar payment we're expecting from Genesis. And that's how the LLC makes money over the long term, is that Genesis is paying the electricity that the solar generates back to the LLC. And you can see the first year it's about $360 a month we're estimating. Step 14, finalize the PPA and obtain board permission to proceed. Now, you won't have this problem, but since we're a huge entity here at Genesis, we had to get 5 approvals. You probably will only have to get 1. We had to get the Genesis board to approve, Temple Beth Emeth board, St. Clair's Vestry, the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, and St. Clair's had a congregational vote. That was tough, but it only took 2 to 3 months. But that was a tough thing to do. Step 15, decide on insurance. Typically, the house of worship can get added on for the panels. You just add on whatever the value of the system, and you'll be paying a little bit more for insurance. Select an accountant, tax preparer for the LLC. And 17, we're almost there. Schedule the installation, sit back and relax. These last 2 steps, you can really relax because your installer is doing all the work here. And then step 18, celebrate. You don't relax. Have a party. Wow. The installer will link you up with software. This is Solar Edge. It tells you how much power you're generating right now, and it tracks it for the whole month. It's great software. I'm addicted to it. I look at it several times a day. And it will even show you the individual panels, how much each individual panel is generating. All right. There were 3 parts to our presentation. We finished all 3 parts. So let's do this. Let's decide. Let's commit. And I'm sure we're going to succeed. And we will help you. And there are many resources. I mentioned that how-to document. We're welcome to share that with you. It contains all the details of what you need to do. Solar Faithful, Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, fellow congregants, your Faith Upline. By Faith Upline, I mean the national organization for your church, if you have one. They will love the fact that you're putting solar panels on your building, and they will help you. We love to present. Just ask us, Zoom, especially in Philadelphia, Zoom, but we'd like to do it in person once this crisis lifts. We have answers to your questions. Just ask and we'll get you an answer. The installers also, they are a great source of information, probably more than we can be, because they've done this many, many times. And there are government resources, which we'll be hearing about in Ann Arbor today from Julie. So we're going to hold questions until after all the presentations are done. But David will be handling the questions, and that's it. Thank you.
Murray, that was excellent. Oh my gosh, man, that was so just awesome. Thank you. Just thank you. The presentation, the graphics, the information, you have found the backbone to this story, and that, everybody, that was just excellent. Okay, we're going to move right along. Murray has set the standard of being precisely on time. So Jan Culbertson will now do a quick introduction of herself and the Ozone House and their solar project. Thanks so much, Jan.
Thank you very much. I'm Jan Culbertson. I'm an architect, and I'm also the chair for the Ann Arbor 2030 district. And those folks from Philly, you have a 2030 district in Philadelphia as well. So our story is about Ozone House, and basically it took the investor model and said, okay, how do we apply that to nonprofits, and what makes that a little different from a house of worship? That's what we're all about. And Ozone House is basically a community-based nonprofit that has a residence for youth, licensed residential facility, and then 18 to 24-year-olds. A lot of folks who are coming out of the, some come out of jail, some come out of a foster care system. They're just younger folks that need a little help learning how to support themselves and life skills. So what the actors in this are the Ozone House LLC, which is a Ozone House Solar LLC, and we're basically the LLC that owns and provides the power. And distributed power was our solar installer. We did get 3 bids, and then this is sort of just a schematic of Ozone House and DTE Energy and distributed power, and of course the IRS, because with the tax credit that they play an important role. And really what we tried to do is, develop that win-win. And we had we basically, when I was looking for investors, we had a little tougher time because when it's not a congregation, you're looking for actual investors. And so at first I just approached a variety of people, and everyone was kind of like, I really want 5%. And it was pretty tough to kind of crunch the numbers to get a full 5%. And so what I did is approach my mom, go to Family First, right? And then a couple of other friends that I've known for a long time who are really dedicated to renewable energy. And so we kind of talked through and said, okay, we can live with a 2% investment. And then you go to the Ozone House board and you say, okay, how about if we do this open book kind of thing? And so that what we're paying for everything. We'll do, is a 90% reduction, or a 10% reduction from the DTE rate. So our rate will increase as DTE's rate increases. And then it basically just is a guaranteed 2% laid out. And they thought that was very reasonable. They still save money. The investors earn some money too. And the other thing that we did was, because of Ozone House dealing with youth, part of our RFP that went out for the solar installer was that they needed to commit to train at least six Ozone alumni. And so that was a part of the RFP to begin with. So kind of the timeline was, I got the idea from a Michigan Interfaith Power and Light presentation, and it took a while to get the investors. It really did. And so we finally got our articles of organization in October, and we knew that we probably weren't going to make installation complete, before the end of the year. So we decided to just buy the panels, so we would have our safe harbor, so we could get the 30% tax credit for this year. And then we developed the training and had to recruit the kids and make sure liability insurance was in place and all of that. And so we finally did that, and training in February is not so cool. It's very cold. But it worked out, and we did a lot of it inside, and they got one day that it was sunny up on the roof. They moved in it was actually at the end of February, the beginning of March, and all of a sudden, bam, COVID. And we had just gotten our electrical inspection. Well, we had just gotten the electrical all hooked up and the inverters working, and we couldn't get our electrical inspection. So we just got that last week. So now we're waiting for DTE to interconnect. Just a couple overview of it. We have two different roofs. We have the flat roof, which is a PVC membrane, and an asphalt shingle roof that faces south. We did do 99 fab solar modules. Those are the ones that are kind of slick because they're all black. It faces a major road, and that just makes it disappear a little bit more. We have two three-phase AC Solar Edge inverters. And yes, Solar Edge has a great dashboard. And optimizers. One of the things that was, I wanted to make sure was that we had good warranties on the roof, and we also did a maintenance agreement within our installation, and one replacement for the inverters. So Ozone House is probably, is sort of set for 30 years, even though panels, reduce their generation, but they're really set for 30 years for both with the roof and the panels. One of the little tweaks was kind of interesting. There was a little bit of conversation about, since we have a full backup generator for Ozone House, the electrical connection was a little different. So it took a little back and forth where to connect the solar in with the generator. Again, we used the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light Solar Faithful templates. We did tweak them, but we have basically our organizational documents, the PPA, our open financial book, which we review with Ozone House every year, and then our solar installation contract, which we did use Distributed Power's typical contract. I added a few things about warranties and liability stuff. Okay, our operating agreement, we took a long time to put our operating agreement together with sort of vision and missions and ownership structures, management, how we were going to make decisions, all of that kind of stuff. Then we worked primarily with the Ozone House president and worked out then the details of how this would work. And they were kind of, you know, they loved the idea, but it was sort of like, okay, well, how is this really going to work? And it looks like they will probably purchase the system after 5 years. When they did they did really well with their open door campaign. And so they actually planned to put some money aside to be able to purchase the panels after our 5 years. They don't have to, it's a 20-year term, so they can opt out depending on what happens at that point.
So Jan, I'll give you about
Yeah.
a 2 or 3 minute warning.
Yep. Okay, so we have an open book financial exhibit, and our total cost for the permits and the training and so forth was about $75,500. We've gone over the IRS stuff. The liability insurance was a little different with Ozone House. We did make sure that we had actually liability insurance as a power provider as soon as the installation started. And then Ozone House was an additional insured to the installer's contract. So, and then Ozone House will be increasing the value, they increase the value of their property to insure the panels, and we're, the LLC is an additional insured in that. So, or a named loss payee, I guess is the actual terminology for it. So working out the insurance was one of those things that was interesting. We decided to go ahead and use like a fidelity account so we could invest in other green, make other green investments, because the money was going to sit there for a bit, and we invested a little bit more than we thought we would need just in case some things came up. Because our first round at the insurance was like $4,000 a year or something like that until we got it in the right category. So yeah, start early, use the templates, but think through how you want things to operate. And I think it's really important, especially with a nonprofit, that you really establish a basis for that trust and open communication and make sure that that's ongoing. And it's helpful to have a diverse team for the LLC. So you have somebody who's a lawyer, someone who's, you know, has some accounting background, some people who are used to being in business and can calculate things. So anyway, that was our story, and hopefully we'll be interconnected within 2 weeks. Yahoo!
Very exciting. Congratulations, Jan. That's, hey, where is Ozone located? I can't quite place it.
Yeah, so it's on the corner of Superior and Huron River Drive in Ypsilanti.
Interesting. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you heard from Murray was sort of the backbone of the process for using the investor model, and what you hear from Jan is how that congregation or the Ozone House in that case used it as a baseline and had to iterate it, which will be your experience too. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to hear from Scott Nelson and the Seventh-day Adventist solar installation, which has their own story to tell. So Scott, yours for 10 minutes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I am Scott Nelson of the Ann Arbor Seventh-day Adventist Church, 2796 Packard Road. And there's some
Scott, to just give you some feedback, you're a little soft. If you can get closer to your mic at all.
okay.
Thank you.
Does that help? Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. You just needed to be a little closer.
Okay.
Better.
Let me try one other thing here. I put on some headphones with a mic. Does that help?
Yes. Hey, before you start, I meant to mention something to the whole team. Jan, I noticed a lot of really good questions came into the chat room. If the whole team could be looking at those questions so we can come up with some very short, succinct answers for the Q&A. All right, Scott, your nickel.
All right. I just wanted to make a couple of brief comments about the Seventh-day Adventist Church and environmental sustainability, and then kind of my own personal experience with that. On Adventist.org, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a worldwide church, and they have position documents up on the web on environmental stewardship, climate change, and a whole variety of topics. Also, there's a global research called Blue Zones Research, which there's a local implementation of that. That research was done by the National Geographic Society, originally back in 2005, published, and implementations are kind of spreading out across the country. Washington Optimal Wellness is an implementation of that that's spinning up, and it has to do with human longevity. And there's a profound link between that and the food system, human nutrition and the food system. And if you follow the data, while electrical generation is very significant in terms of sustainability, I think we'll find that the food system is even more significant. Here's just another little note. In Washtenaw County, we have a rain garden program. And I spearheaded a project of putting a rain garden in at my church. Also, there's a current event, which is actually starting today on June 5th, is World Environment Day. And that's something that's inspired by the United Nations. I was going to be in Honolulu at the Rotary International Conference coming up this week. And of course, COVID nixed that. And so on June 5, which is Friday, I will be attending that event like this event is being attended just now. And so that's just an interesting note that maybe we can all follow in one shape or another. That's just a photograph of my rain garden. And I kind of put it up there because that was a couple of photos taken on Friday. And, you know, pictures of flowers are good. And it's 120 feet long. This project, as well as the solar project, fits Murray's credo of give them an offer they can't refuse, which is kind of an odd thing for a house of worship to say, but it is actually a very good motif. So in both these projects, I presented it to our board and I said, I'm paying for it, I'm going to install it, I'm going to maintain it, I'm doing all the work. That's an offer that you probably should not refuse. And another reason why I put that photograph out there is because when Murray was over at our house of worship earlier this year, he said, can you show me your solar panels? And I said, no, because from the ground, you can't see them. And so this is a photo here, Murray, of the solar panels. And this is the reason why you can't see them from the ground. So there's the rain garden out on one side of our school building. And what you're looking at there is a couple of very large metal roofs on a school building. And the smaller of the two is a gymnasium roof. And it's perfectly situated facing south with the slope for the solar panels. So, And it doesn't matter where you go on the property, you can't look up there and see those solar panels. Here's our timeline, a little uglier than the earlier timeline that we looked at. But yeah, Jane came over with Josh McDowell from the city of Ann Arbor late in 2017. And we sat there in our conference room, didn't we, Jane? And that was a moment of inspiration there where we looked at the electric bills and talked about the viability of a project for our house of worship. There was a workshop at the campus chapel later on in 2017. And then the most significant event in 2018 was that my mother passed away. And of course, that's a uniquely tragic event that happens once for each one of us. But my mother left me some money, and I just decided that I had enough cash potentially to be the sole investor of our project in Ann Arbor. So that helped me to make this offer that our church could not refuse. I was offering to pay for it upfront myself as a single investor. So that
So
simplifies.
Scott, you're just a little past halfway. Got about 4 minutes left.
Okay, but I thought I got 20.
10.
All right. No, I'll keep going here. Thank you. In early 2019, Homeland Solar made a visit, and I'd given them our electric history, and they produced a couple of solid proposals for doing the project. Genesis Congregation, Murray's congregation, had another workshop in February. We did not do a complete energy audit, but we did take Homeland Solar's advice, and we changed out basically all of our lighting in the school building and the church building from fairly old technology, T12 fluorescents, and we went to LEDs, and we used DTE energy credit for each bulb, which paid about $4 per $10 bulb. They also recommended a rate change that should have been in place for many decades for our school. So we got a rate change based on the fact that it was a school. I attended a Washtenaw Community College entrepreneurship workshop, half a day, on setting up your LLC. And that was really kind of very valuable in how to target getting that document to Michigan LARA, which is a licensing and regulation administration. Set up the bank account separately in May. And then those permissions are quite important. So I had 3 levels of permissions presented to our church board. Then we have a local church in business, got approval there. And then we had to go to our association. So all the churches, SDA churches in Michigan, are owned by the Michigan Association. So we needed to obtain permission there. And they were actually very enthusiastic about the project and gave the go-ahead. Solar installation happened in August of last year, and I got to help hoist the panels up on the roof. And once we got the permits from DTE and the building inspectors, then we went live in October and November. There's actually 2 separate systems up on the same roof because all the electricity goes through for 2 different buildings. So that's just a unique aspect on our system. And this shows a breakdown of the 2 systems, the church, the school, the total cost of the systems, and then the federal tax credit, the state depreciation, and the federal depreciation. So a $63,000 system ends up costing the LLC $29,000. And so this shows the
So about a 1-minute warning, please.
The projected solar production for the school, over an annual period, we estimated that we would do 50% of that with solar, and with the church, we could cover 100% of the solar. That's one of my buddies. We went through and did direct wire on the LEDs, and that's just part of that operation. We have a DTE interconnection agreement. That's just one of the documents. And then we use the same legal documents that Jane used at Ozone House. The single member operating agreement talks about the LLC operations, the power purchase agreement between the church and the LLC, talking about the pay down, and the, I don't know what EPC stands for, but that's basically the agreement between the LLC and the solar provider. And that's really just their documents. These are the last few documents here. This is created by my solar provider, which happens to be Homeland Solar. And all the way over on the right side, you can see 44% green, and that represents the nearly 50%. And of course, that's ramping up now since the beginning of the year, the winter years being the worst years. And then all the way over on the right side again, under percent green, you can see 100% there for the church, and we'll be exceeding that as the summer months heat up. And this is just a copy of our billing statement that we provided to the church, to the LLC, and it just gives solar production in kilowatt hours, and it gives a bottom line based on that 10% that we charge of the DTE rate. And so they immediately save money. And there was a question in there in the chat about what happens once the system is paid off. And in most of these cases, probably all of them, the entity that has the panels becomes the owner. So I'm getting the money back. I'm not charging a percentage. I'm a member of the church, so this is really just kind of a donation at a level. I'm already making financial donations to the church, but I'll get the exact cost back over 6 or 7 years. And once I have done that, then we're clean and good, and the church just takes over the ownership. And over 25 years, they save $120,000 on electrical cost, and amidst all the other benefits of being carbon neutral or approaching carbon neutrality, et cetera, et cetera.
Well done, Scott. Congratulations. My goodness. That's it's really helpful to see the very simple way you've broken down the return, the cost after the various rebates and credits. Congratulations. Well done.
That's me in the black shirt there.
The tall guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much. We are now going to go to Diane Cheklich, who among the team just brings probably the most years of experience and a very deep expertise on solar. So Diane's going to really tell us two different stories. The more recent one is how she's taken this model to a condominium setting, another nonprofit, an association. We'll hear about that. We're also going to hear just a little bit about the church in Ferndale, an area outside of Detroit, a solar installation many years ago, and Diane can now offer a multi-year perspective. So Diane, the mic is yours for about 18 minutes.
18 minutes, all right. Thank you very much, Jane.
Thanks.
And I'm very happy to be here today. I'm gonna just go back to back with those two talks, and so we won't, I just have a little sign, a little screen break in between. So I will start your 18-minute timer now, okay? Okay, solar condominiums, like Jane said, this PPA model can apply to condominiums, which have not-for-profit associations that manage them typically. So I took the model, tweaked it a little bit for this application, and applied it in the place where I live here in Detroit. So this is the outline of what I intend to review today. Talk about our condo, which is a multi-unit single building. Go through our process, which is similar to what you've heard. Talk about the solar array and the investment structure, and then a little bonus that we didn't think of in the beginning. First, I want to show some respect to the SUNSHOT team that pulled this all together. The Solar Faithful, Jane, Jennifer, the City of Ann Arbor. I was the coach of this program. It's a government Department of Energy initiative to expand solar access to low and moderate income communities and nonprofit communities, which typically have high barriers to solar. The goal was to try and knock those barriers down. There were over 170 teams around the country, 7 in Michigan, and I was the coach for 5 of those, including Solar Faithful. And I'm very proud of the work that the team has done. What we have here today is a direct outcome of all of those efforts. Murray and David were part of the group that attended some of the workshops, and now they're leading them. So I think this is just a model, excellent model and excellent outcome of the whole government initiative. So great job, everyone. Another thing that is an important kind of high-level background of all this is that the sun, the energy from the sun is plentiful and free to all of us. That in a single hour, the amount of power from the sun that strikes the earth creates more energy than the entire human population consumes in an entire year. So we have this great opportunity to harness it. We need to step up and do more of that. Also, the cost of solar has been coming down drastically over the last 10 years. It's dropped 73%. Even since the Ferndale Church project happened 3 years ago, it's come down. So the prices are low, the tax credits are still there, and it's a nice intersection for everybody who's thinking about that right now. At a utility scale, solar out in California recently sold for 2 cents a kilowatt hour, whereas a new natural gas plant is 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So you see the headline there, solar is the future. And of course, climate change, Murray mentioned that earlier. This is my personal motivation for both of the PPA projects that I've been involved in. We have to have the right amount of urgency in making these decisions. So if you are considering going solar and you've been thinking, well, I don't know if we'll do it this year or next year or 5 years from now, if you need a tiebreaker, do it now because we need this level of urgency. Okay, so coming back down to our condominium here in Detroit, we are the Willis Overland Lofts. It's in kind of the center of Detroit near Wayne State University. It's a 66-unit building. It is managed by a nonprofit association, and so this is where that PPA opportunity comes in. And we have a common area electric meter that powers the common areas, hallway lights, garage doors, elevators, and each of us in the individual units has our own separate meters. So the opportunity is really for that common area electricity, which we are spending about $30,000 a year on, which is kind of a mind-blowing thing, but it's one of our highest expenses. The process is very similar to Murray's 18-step process. We gauged an initial interest in solar in the building. We actually did a survey monkey. Up here you can see that we sent out to owners in the building because all those 66 owners are part of the process, even though the association manages it. So it was really important to get that buy-in from the people who live here. And so out of those 66 units, 41 people replied to the survey, which was a nice turnout, and 75% of those expressed interest in solar. So the interest was there, either owning it outright or having a third party. So we issued an RFP to find out what the exact cost would be. The initial interest was just based on a rough estimate, so now we had more exact cost. And then we needed to make the decision who would own this. Should the association own it, or in fact, a third party. An interesting thing that we found out along the way was that even though our association is a nonprofit, the owners, if they were to pay for this through a special assessment, because it wasn't in the budget, would get that tax credit passed through to them. Even though the association would own it, the residents of the building could take the tax credit. And that was a really interesting thing, because we figured it would be about a $3,000 special assessment for each owner, but that would get dropped by $900 because of the tax credits in place. So we took it to a vote. We had this special ballot, and despite the fact that there was that interest and the potential for a tax credit, it got voted down by the owners of the building. So then our plan B was to create a PPA and recruit investors. And you can see this slide down here was an investor session to help explain the opportunities to invest in this particular project. So once the investors were recruited and we knew that we could finance this, we brought it to the board of our building. They took a vote, voted yes, and we formed the LLC and moved forward with the installation. So these are the details of our solar array. This is, we have a 94.4 kilowatt array, which is 236 panels on the roof of the building. It's also the backdrop of my my background, my Zoom background here. And it offsets about 50% of our common area electricity. Michigan Solar Solutions did the work, and we went live in December of last year. So we were able to take advantage of the 30% tax credit by the federal government. And the projected carbon dioxide avoided is 73 tons per year. These are some aerial views that I just was not aware of. Apparently a real estate agent took these photos. So that's kind of a cool fringe benefit of this, right? It's a feature that, that the building has solar, and it might increase the appeal of the building to someone potentially buying here. But it's a pretty cool view from overhead. So thank you, whoever took these photos. Our results to date, like I said, we went live in December, and we've generated so far 36, almost 37 megawatt hours, and we've saved over 57,000 pounds of carbon dioxide already just since December. And you can see the layout on the right of how our roof layout is, our panel layout is. Just like Murray's, at Genesis, the panels do not penetrate, they're ballasted on our roof. Our building is a 100-year-old building, and we are prone to leaks. So it was kind of important for us in the selling of the whole concept to say this solar array will not penetrate the roof and contribute to any more leaks. So our investor group is called West Willis Power and Light. West Willis is the name of our street, and we have 11 investors. We raised $200,000 in $10,000 shares. And so some people, we range anywhere from 1 to 3 shares that people purchased. They all happen to be building residents, although as we've discussed, it's not required that PPA investors belong to the congregation or live, in this case, in the building. And I'm one of the 2 managing members in our LLC. So I'm the person who creates the invoice for the electricity every month and manages some of the, if there are any maintenance issues or repair conversations or insurance discussions. Not a lot of work, but it's important to have someone like that. And our deal, like the others, is a 20-year term, but we also have a possibility for buyout after year 5. Like the Ozone House, our rate tracks DTEs. We are 20% lower than DTE's rate. And as the DTE rate changes, so will our rate. And we did use the Solar Faithful templates. The PPA document, the contract was very helpful. And the lawyer we work with took that as a baseline and just had to tweak it from there. So we were able to save money on the legal side of this project. So the bonus out of all of this is that because we have this electricity feeding into our system, before we went solar, we had just a buffer of about 10% spare in our electric service. And the solar has actually effectively increased the capacity of our electric service. And those of us with electric vehicles, I bought a Chevrolet Bolt last fall, are exploring getting EV charging in the building, and that capacity is key to that. And there are about 15 people who are interested, who either have EVs or want to buy EVs. And so having solar in the building will allow us to install EV charging without having to upgrade our service, which would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the solar is providing us a nice little bonus that way. So that's an overview of the loft project, the condominium project. To my knowledge, this is the first one in the state that's done a PPA, but would love to see this replicated just like Solar Faithful is doing with houses of worship. They're a similar type of a profile, and there's no reason why we can't roll this out. So let's go and do that. For those of you who live in condominiums, let's talk. Okay, so next is our Ferndale First United Methodist Church. This is another PPA that I was an investor in. I do not belong to this congregation, but if you recall, I feel a sense of urgency about climate change, and I had the opportunity to invest and help this church get solar back in 2017. So I met the leaders of the church, met the installer, who was the group who brought it to me, and we went forward. So 2017, it's been 3 years. It's a 20 kilowatt system, which represents about 29% of the church's electricity. We do have a 20-year term there as well. It's about an 8% discount from DTE, and we started at an initial price, and it's being escalated 1% per year. And the profile of these terms were pretty much recommended by the installer, which was Shrinergy. The guy on the right in this photo is Prasad Gulapalli. He's the president of Shrinergy. And the person on the left is Richard Fowler, who is the champion for solar at Ferndale FUMC. So Richard has solar on his own house, and so he brought it to the church, and together worked with the leadership there to decide to move forward. So Richard's a great guy. I know that several of you know him, and he gets a lot of credit for making this happen. So just to clarify, because the solar only provides around 30% of the electricity to the church, the utility, in this case DTE, provides the other 70%. So the church effectively has two electric bills. They end up paying less for electricity, but it does go to two different entities, one to the electric company and one to me as the investor, because I own that solar, so the church is paying for the electricity from that. And that's that little bit of administration that I referred to earlier. The benefits to the church is they get a lower energy cost. They get a locked in rate for 20 years. So this has been mentioned before, but I just want to emphasize it, that the church knows exactly what that electricity will cost for the next 20 years. So it can be budgeted. It's not an unknown or a risk factor that the utility might increase the rates. It's locked in, so that provides a sense of financial security for the organization. And then finally, it upholds the natural world values for the United Methodist Church, and those are listed over here on the right. The leaders of the church will say that their decision was mostly driven from a financial basis, but this is also, everyone on this call can feel good about upholding the values of their organization as well. And these are the benefits to me, the investor. The project cost was over $58,000. It was a little over $3 a watt, which is much lower now. The church did create a down payment, and so that was able to pay down the cost of the electricity going forward. So I've been able to realize the tax incentive, the depreciation, and the cash revenue from the PPA. So those are the three streams that investors can realize. So to date at Ferndale, remember this has been running for 3 years. There have been 70 megawatt hours of energy generated, over 100,000 pounds of carbon dioxide avoided. And you see this graph over on the right. This is a cool thing about this monitoring system. It shows the year-on-year production. So 2020 is the green, And you can see in May about where we are. May was sunnier than May 2020 was sunnier than May of 2019. So you do see that variability year on year. But it's overall, the system has produced a little bit more than what was projected. So I'm happy about that. The church is happy about that. Just in terms of the returns from the financial projections and also from the pollution projections, it's been pretty much right on target. And the 25-year outlook from Shrinergy shows 544 megawatt hours of energy, 391 metric tons of carbon dioxide. And there are all kinds of ways you can slice and dice this information to appeal to the organization or the investors that these are some real benefits of this investment. Even though they don't get monetized as much as they should be, these are real important returns on that money. And I think that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Diane, thank you. And thank you for the jump you've made into the condominium association territory. So there are just lots of great questions coming through in the chat room, which is yet another benefit of Zoom. So I notice we're dealing with those as we go. So please get questions in there. All right, we're going to do two things as we begin to wrap up and head toward a Q&A. Jennifer Young from Michigan Interfaith Power and Light is going to talk about a solar program they've got underway. And then we're going to hear a little bit about Ann Arbor. So let's start with Michigan IPL. Jennifer?
Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So hello, I'm Jennifer. I'm with Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. We are a statewide nonprofit that assists the faith community in connecting faith, sustainability, and justice. We were founded by Father Charles Morris, who is on this call with us. And at that time, Michigan was the 4th state to join a national network called Interfaith Power and Light. So Pennsylvania, you definitely have your own Interfaith Power and Light. We're in over 40 states now. So our mission is to inspire and equip people of faith to exercise stewardship of and love for all creation. And definitely saving energy and carbon is a great way to do that. So I just briefly wanted to make an announcement among the many resources that are available in our programs and initiatives and on our website. We've just launched a solar resources webpage that is on our website. The link is down below. Currently, and we're still building it out, but currently it lists nearly 30 congregations in Michigan that we're aware of that have installed solar in some manner or are participating in solar. So the vast majority put solar on their roof, but there are a few congregations that put up solar powered LED lights in their parking lot. We find that that's important, especially when we think about solar access to low income and minority communities, that there should be other low access entry ways into solar. So that list includes those options as well as a couple congregations in Lansing that didn't think it was appropriate for their roof or for their congregation at this time, so that they're participating in community solar. So all of those are listed there. By and large, those faith communities have told us that they're available to share their stories with others. So if you're interested, we'd be happy to put you in contact so that you can hear from others who have been successful at implementing their projects. And just on the note of energy efficiency, when we get there, we do have programs that are free for our members to get free energy audits from their utilities. So when we come back to the Q&A, be happy to talk more about that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, Julie Roth, have you sorted out various audio issues? I'm looking for you.
Here I am.
Oh, there you are. It feels like an oversized game of Jeopardy.
I know.
Okay, so you are going to walk us through, and I want to set a little context for everyone really quickly. So I think many of you may know Ann Arbor City Council has declared a climate emergency and has directed the development of a carbon neutrality plan. And we are now in the midst of sort of the funding aspects of that plan. Solar Faithful is a key element, as well as other solar initiatives, and that's really what Julie is now going to be telling us about. So let me turn it to you, Julie, and I understand you've got about 7 minutes.
I do. I have 7 minutes, so I'll talk quick. Jane, thank you so much. And I was actually reviewing my slides as I was listening to everybody else to take out redundant information. So hopefully this will be new information. So as Jane said, the Ann Arbor City Council declared climate emergency last fall. As part of that, they decided to create a plan to get to carbon neutrality by the year 2030, which is ambitious and big. And the plan is called A20. And here's a little picture here of our emissions over time since 2000. We've been working on reducing them over time. We have to take a dramatic reduction compared to what the slope of the line that we've been doing thus far. A brief snapshot from 2018 shows Ann Arbor's greenhouse gas emission inventory per sector. So we can see that residential sector makes up about 23% of the carbon emissions in Ann Arbor. And this 2030 carbon neutrality goal is not municipal, it is the entire city. So that involves all of us, everybody who lives here, works here, drives here, everything. I imagine houses of worship would probably fall in this green section, commercial and industrial, 22% of carbon emissions. So we all have work to do. And our goal is to help everybody get there. The big picture of the A20 or the A20 plan has 7 sort of major overarching ideas. One is powering our electric grid with 100% renewable energy, 100%. That means getting solar everywhere we can get it, and then figuring out a different way of getting power from our utility or changing a utility. It's complicated. Number 2 is switching everything that is currently burning gas, whether it's natural gas or vehicle gas, from fossil fuels to clean energy. So we get our electricity from green and renewable energy sources, and then we power everything with that. We improve energy efficiency because that's going to be massively taxing on the grid. So we have to reduce how much energy we're using. We reduce the miles we travel in our vehicles by 50%, change the way we use, reuse, and dispose of materials. And number 6, because climate change is already here, and we know this, we enhance the resilience of our people in our place, and we talk about adaptation and how do we support that. And I added this in here as I was listening to other people talk, because I saw in the chat box there were quite a few questions about batteries and that kind of thing. One of the things that A20 is working on is something called resilience centers. And the idea of a resilience center would be somewhere that people could gather in case of a climate emergency. And churches, houses of worship, library branches, community centers, nonprofits could all be potential resilience hubs, right? And if we have batteries in there as well as solar, then if the grid goes down, we still have access to electricity to be able to heat, cool, refrigerate, run emergency equipment, things like that, internet, etc. So if you're interested in the plan in general, you go to a20.org. It's a working plan, it's a draft plan, and it's robust and it's pretty. It's got lots of graphics. So go check it out if you're interested in Ann Arbor's ambitious plan. So as part of that, obviously Ann Arbor is very motivated to reduce barriers to getting solar. So Ann Arbor itself has already done some work, including no cost for permits, little information required, building permits, not fast turnaround of anything under like 13 kilowatts. So basically a residential solar. installation. Other people have covered this a little bit. Costs have dramatically reduced in the past 10 years. I was not aware of this. This is substantial. Plenty of people were putting solar up 10 years ago. We're at half the cost. And the technology has really improved as well. So the solar panels are becoming more and more efficient. And here is electricity costs in the Midwest. I don't have Pennsylvania in there because I didn't know half of our audience is going to be Pennsylvania, but I imagine it's also going up. DTE is who we have here in Southeast Michigan. Rates increased by 9% or so last May, and 2 months later they requested another increase and it was just approved. So that just keeps going up. Other people have mentioned this, but this is really important because we hope that there will be an extension of the federal tax credit, but I don't think there's any guarantee whatsoever. Even if we get a new friendly administration in, the goal of the federal tax credit was really to jumpstart the solar industry. The solar industry is pretty jump-started, so I'm not sure that's where the money will go. I hope so, but I don't know. So again, in the timeliness, not just the financial incentives, but the urgency of global warming. Like now is the time, there's just not a lot, there's no reason to wait anymore. Here in Michigan, we have also gotten rid of the property tax assessment. Your property tax used to go up every time you got solar on your roof, which was a massive disincentive. And this brings us to the Solarize, which is a program that I am helping to run out of Ann Arbor and in conjunction with the A20 initiative. So Solarize is a neighborhood or community-based bulk buy solar opportunity. We're going anywhere in Washtenaw County, but given that there's so many people here from other places, this is very replicable, this model, right? My goal is get more solar on more houses and more buildings as soon as possible. And so if anyone wants to talk to me about the model, feel free to reach out. Basically, what I'm doing as the sort of Solarize lead is helping find interested parties who live in neighborhoods. The reason that it works so well in conjunction with Solar Faithful is because if you have a congregation already having a discussion about solar and potentially getting solar panels on their house of worship, the individuals in the congregation may also have interest in getting solar panels on their own residences. In that case, it's an easy group to do a bulk buy with. So I'm finding neighborhoods, maybe friend groups, condo associations with individual roofs. I'm doing one right now. And we find somebody or a few people in that neighborhood or that group who are interested in solar, and I work with them in creating an event. We pull together people. It's now all on Zoom. We do a whole big education thing. It's motivating and exciting. And we talk about solar and how it works and what the financial incentives are. And the individual hosting or individuals has chosen the installer. And we have a group of installers working with Solarize in Michigan. All the installers that are working with Solarize participate with Michigan Saves. Michigan Saves is a green bank that offers low interest financing for residents doing energy efficiency upgrades, which includes solar panels. So you can get very low interest financing, and it's really quick. It's like a 15-minute phone call to get a loan through Michigan Saves. Also right now, home loans refinancing are like they're giving them away. So the interest is very low on those as well. But anyway, Michigan Saves also pre-vets installers in terms of their licensure and registration and insurance. So we have a list of installers who are agreed to this bulk buy program. Once the individual has chosen one of the installer comes to the meeting with me and the group of people that we've recruited to come together and answers everybody's questions about solar. And these are the tiered discounts. So they're substantial. If 3 or more individuals decide to get solar, then the installer has agreed to 5% discount on everybody. If 7 or more decide to go with solar, 10% discount for everybody. And if 10 or more get solar, 15%, which is huge when you combine it with the 26% current federal tax credit. And the The installers that we're working with say it works for them because that is like this last Solarize I just had, there were 40 participants. He's now running around doing 26 estimates. So we've just sort of dumped business in his lap without him having to go out and recruit 26 estimates. So far, our turnover into from estimate to sales has been good, over 50%. So so far we're hitting that 10 plus new arrays pretty easily, and we're still in kind of the infancy or toddlerhood of the program. So we're still expanding. And we've done several now in Ann Arbor. I'm looking to extend out into Washtenaw County. Ann Arbor doesn't really care where emissions reductions come from. We're all breathing the same air. So that's the idea. And I thought it was just a nice segue with Solar Faithful program, with nonprofits, with who may have, participants with condo associations, who have individuals with individual roofs, with neighborhoods, friend groups, anybody who can join a bulk buy. So if you're interested in more about this, that is my contact information. I'm Julie Roth at that Julie K. Roth 111 email. You can also contact Missy Stultz, who's the director of the Office of Sustainability and Innovations in Ann Arbor. You can also Google Ann Arbor Solar, and you will find information about the program on the city government's website. How did I do? Did I come in under time?
I don't know. I lost track. I was so focused. Yes, you are great.
Good.
You are great. Hey, could I ask any questions about Ann Arbor? Do send them to Julie. Missy, Dr. Stoltz, Missy is up to her eyeballs on many, many aspects of the carbon neutrality plan. So let's not hit her email.
She will just forward them to me.
Yeah, so focus on Julie if you would. If you're picking up background noise, we really are today have a tree cutting crew. So that might be what you're hearing. Apologies for that. All right, we are wrapping this up. We want to do two more things. We want to make sure we're attending to your questions, and we want to be very clear about next steps. So relative to questions, I'm going to look to David, you first, and to the team. What's our sense of how we're doing on the chat room questions? Are there particular themes, commonalities coming up, anything particular? And I want to encourage all participants, I think there's, use the chat room as our means of addressing questions if you would. If you've got something burning you want to say, raise your hand and we'll figure out how to get you in here. David, what are you noticing?
So
David Lewis?
we've been answering a lot of questions have been answered by various people throughout the presentation. Can you hear me?
All right. Hey, David, it's hard to hear you. We've got to, you're very
you hear me?
soft and in the background.
Can you hear me? I'll lean in a little bit. Can you hear me now? I think, am I having issues here? Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we've been answering questions. We've been answering as we go. I'm going to try and figure out a way to get the chat made available for everyone if anybody wants to access it later. Hopefully I'll be able to do that. I don't know if there's been someone to answer some of the questions that haven't been answered, or feedback that have been answered. If you want to do a little hand waves through Zoom, or unmute yourself and speak up.
All right, so David, your audio is a little difficult. It's got quite a warble and an echo to
We are
it.
going to, we are recording.
It sounds
I
like your
apologize for
connection
that.
is not strong.
We
David.
are going to be, we are recording this.
Okay,
Yeah,
David, I'm going to jump in here. The audio from you is not working well. Can you hear me?
I think it's his internet connection, not his
I
audio.
can hear you fine.
It's a slow internet connection.
Oh.
All right, so we just have a low quality audio from you. So here's my sense. I think with so many of us on the call, it's going to be a little hard to open this up to a live Q&A. What I think I heard David saying is keep your questions going in the chat room and we will find a means of addressing those. Does that sound, team, does that sound like a reasonable way forward? Yes, I see thumbs up from Murray. All right, I see thumbs up from Alan.
Dan,
Good.
I might mention there were several questions in the chat room. I think they were mostly addressed about depreciation and how that works. And so I don't know if you wanted to mention that verbally.
Diane, can you talk depreciation?
Yes, I can. And I know that David has done extensive research on this too. So if you do get your audio back, you feel free to weigh in. So the federal government, in fact, in 2018, with the big tax bill, passed law that said you can depreciate a solar project 100% in the first year. And it depends. So that is an option. It's not required to do that. And if you don't have a tax liability to support that, you can spread it out over subsequent years, but you can depreciate 100% in the first year and take that benefit right away. Now, our LLC for the condominium does not have the liability to cover that, so it'll probably spread out, and I believe that the Eastover LLC did not as well. Does that help?
Okay, so again, to the team, are we seeing any large questions in the chat room that need more attention? I'm guessing,
Can you hear me any better now, or is it still poor?
is that you, David?
Well, I think we are going to have documents available.
Yeah, David, it sums up that
Jeffrey, you're going to comment on the IPA website.
yeah. I don't know who, David, I'm assuming that's you talking and it's not working.
Still.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to keep the questions in the context of the chat room. We will save that chat. Someone just offered directions on how to do this. And I want to talk next steps. And I want you to know that we're going to sort of figure this out together. We are at an inflection point with Solar Faithful. We have a model. We have a number of success stories. We have strong leaders among this team. And there is a strong willingness and interest in trying to move it to scale, to being a resource for you guys. We as a team are kind of figuring that out right now. At a minimum, here are 2 touch points. We will keep all of this material as of today in 2 places. And Julie Roth, test me here. We already have an ongoing partnership with Michigan, again, Interfaith Power and Light, IPL. This material under a heading of Solar Faithful will be on that website. And we will work with Jennifer to get that material there. Jennifer, can you confirm that? Thumbs up. All right. The second place that this material will be available is at the Ann Arbor, Julie, help me out here. It's the A20.
Yeah, I can work on getting a link to the presentation on the a20.org website. It'll take me a little bit. CTN can host it, and then we can link from the A20 to CTN under sustainability. So yeah, in a few days, probably, I can make that happen.
What is CTN?
Oh, Community Television Network. So
Right.
they host all the public meetings, and we have a channel, a sustainability channel now. And so
Oh, I
they'll
see.
host it, and then we'll link it from 820 website.
I see. All right. And can we also make a little place on the 820 website to have a little solar faithful section underneath the solar portion, do you think?
Let me talk to you about that after. Yeah.
All right.
We're working
All
on website development right now, actually. So we're going to have a whole new website in very soon.
All right, that sounds
So,
great.
yeah.
That'll become secondary. Primary initial resource will be Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. Murray, what else do we want to be offering in terms of contact information?
Well, I think that'll do it. As far as what we're going to put on there, we can put the PowerPoints that were shown today, and also we're recording this call so that if others who weren't on the call want to see it, we'll be able to review this information.
And you and David have a written version of sort of these 18 steps, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's available. We'll get that on the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light website too. And it has the 18 steps. It's like a dozen pages, and it's easy how-to document.
That sounds great. All right, my sense is we're getting close to a wrap up here.
Jane, I'm sorry to
Yes,
interrupt.
Diane,
but
go.
I was asked to give some policy updates in the.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Do we have time for that before?
Please.
Okay, now?
Oh, yeah, I see that. Thank you.
Now, or you're gonna finish? your-
Go, do it.
Go, okay.
Hey, well, actually, Murray, I'm going to call you on your cell phone for right now because I want to ask you something. And Diane, you take the floor.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm back. I'm sharing my screen once again, and our friends in Philadelphia, this is geared toward a Michigan audience, but if there is a parallel opportunity in Pennsylvania, it's definitely something to tune into. I'll just take a few minutes, but let's go through this, because what we're doing is working with the existing policy that we have in the state of Michigan. Whoops. Sorry, I thought I was. Okay. And just to set a baseline, Michigan is actually ranked number 8 in the entire country in terms of rooftop solar potential. And we've got 5,400 jobs in solar and 167 megawatts installed, but we have a failing grade in our energy policy. And we got called out in this report by the Center for Biological Diversity saying, you know, we're one of the top 10 in terms of potential. We're one of the bottom 10 in terms of policy. So what can we do? This is where we all need to remind ourselves that we have influence as constituents of our policymakers. So we do have encouraging potential in state government with Governor Whitmer. You see her signing that property tax bill on a solar panel with Yusuf Rabi, who is a representative from Ann Arbor, who's a great champion for solar. The Michigan Public Service Commission, or MPSC, just turned over 2 of its 3 members within the last year, and they are more progressive and supportive of renewable energy. And in our legislature, although it's still dominated by Republicans, they have a smaller majority than in the past. So things are heading in the right direction. And an example of that is Mr. Rabi and Stephanie Chang, the state senator from Detroit, introduced a 100% renewable energy bill in January of this year. Michigan cities are also being.
I did ask Jennifer to take a poll, take attendance, and she should have.
Hey, Murray, can you mute yourself?
Oops, sorry.
Okay. So we've gone through some of the very aggressive and impressive goals from Ann Arbor. I'm very excited and kind of jealous here in Detroit. Traverse City is going 100% renewable by this year. Grand Rapids is 2025, and Detroit still has not made that commitment. So I'm involved in citizen groups who are trying to influence the policy in Detroit, and we keep bringing up Ann Arbor as a shining example. So keep up the good work, Julie and company. Despite all these great intentions by our policymakers and trying to get out from that failing grade, we are monopolized by investor-owned utilities in the state, DTE in the Southeast Michigan region, whose goals, quite frankly, are not as supportive of clean energy as they need to be. And really, it's a need to be at this point because of the problem of climate change. These are just a few headlines, but DTE is very active in lobbying, also Consumers Energy on the west side of the state. And they are a force to be reckoned with when it comes to policymaking. I was on a call yesterday with Yusuf Rabi and the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and he told a story of he was rounding up supporters, co-sponsors for some of his clean energy legislation, and DTE and Consumers called those supporters into the lobby, and they came back in and crossed their name off his co-sponsor list. It was really pretty mind-blowing. So that is what we're up against. So all of us as constituents have an opportunity to weigh in with our representatives in Lansing. There are 3 bills going on that are been introduced right now they're collectively called Powering Michigan Forward. And they're in the state Senate at the moment. Senate Bill 596, 597, and 598. 596 establishes a fair value for solar. We used to have net metering in Michigan, and that went away as of last year. So the idea behind that is if you generate any surplus solar, if you're not like Murray and David were saying, their building's not occupied right now, so their solar generates more than they need, that surplus goes out onto the grid and gets a credit from the electric company. But the credit that they're getting is not the retail credit that that they would have gotten a year ago. So that is kind of a penalty, and it changes the economic payback on solar. So these bills attempt to, their goal is to restore that. The middle 597 there removes a 1% cap on solar systems. And this is key because our law right now says only 1% of the ratepayers are able to go solar. And after that, the utilities are not obligated to connect them to their grids. So this is something that could stop the solar industry dead in its tracks in Michigan. And SB 597 would lift that cap. So and these bills have bipartisan support. 2 out of the 3 are in fact have been introduced by Republicans. So they have bipartisan support. Your representatives need to hear for your support of these bills. So please write down what they are. I'm going to send you a link in the chat in a minute where you can do a one-click comment to make your voice known about these. Passage of these bills would move Michigan out of our failing policy grade category. So again, contact your state senators, tell them you support these. If Yusuf Rabi is your representative or Stephanie Chang is your state senator, please let them know that you support 100% renewable. In his comments yesterday, Mr. Rabi said this is very important for people to get involved, and I'm sure he would love to hear your support. At the local level, tell your city council member that you support more solar in your community, all the great things that Ann Arbor is doing. Let your representatives there know that this is important to you as a citizen. And these will start reducing the barriers, like Julie was saying, no permitting costs, things like that. Those policies help make it easier and help make it more cost effective to go solar. So get involved, and finally vote for solar friendly candidates this fall. You can find out how people, what their positions are from the local all the way up to the federal level. This is an opportunity for us to really take solar to the next level. So thank you very much. My contact information is below there, and I'd be happy to follow up with anyone afterwards.
Excellent. Hey, so thank you so much to the Solar Faithful team, to the presenters today. I want to end with 3 key contacts for you. Yes, really, really well done. I'm going to give Murray, Jennifer, and Diane, in that order, are going to put up their emails on the screen. Murray Rosenthal is really moving into a leadership role on Solar Faithful and has been exceptional. He is willing to be a point of contact. Murray, while I talk, why don't you put your email up? Can you do that?
Just did.
You did? Oh, see it at the bottom? It's in the chat room, I guess. Jennifer at Michigan IPL, Jennifer Young is the other critical touch point. And at this point, Michigan IPL will be the primary repository until Ann Arbor gets up to speed on its revised website. What you'll find, the 3 legal templates are available, but we are not comfortable just putting them on a public website. So what you'll see on the Michigan IPL site is a little form to fill out with your email, and then we will be back in touch with you. They're too valuable to just have out in the public domain. The third key resource, and Diane just put up her, I would very much encourage you to consider Diane Cheklich with her depth of experience as a resource for your own solar projects. So Murray, Jennifer, Diane. Give me a thumbs up that you're finding those emails and contacts. Participants, yes? Okay.
Hey, Jane, can I just interject?
Please.
By and large, most people registered for this event, so we have your email. We can follow up by sending information. But if you, in case you didn't register, if you would like to provide us with your email address so we can follow up, please do. You could either email one of us, or you can just simply send us a private message in the chat. There's a function
Yes.
where
Excellent.
you could send a direct message to us in the chat
Right.
box.
And that would be great as we continue to now position Solar Faithful to move to scale. So an email list coming out of this meeting is an important asset. So if you didn't register, use the private function in chat to put your email or send it directly to Jennifer. On that note, I think we're winding down. Are we done? Are we good? Any closing comments, Murray?
No, I thought this was a wonderful sunny day and we made good use of it.
Diane, any parting goodbye?
No, thank you everyone for attending. One of the nice things about doing this via Zoom is that our friends in Philadelphia can join us, right?
Yes.
We might not have made the drive to Ann Arbor if we did it in person. So thank you all for joining. I hope it was worthwhile, and look forward to carrying the Solar Faithful model bigger and better going forward. Thank you.
Yay. Jennifer, anything you want to add before we close? Where are you? There you are. Come off mute.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm so inspired by everyone who's on the call. Thank you so much.
All right. And I wanted to go to Julie. There you are.
Yeah, thank you. What an inspiring group of human beings. I feel uplifted by the fact that, you know, sometimes you just feel like you're banging your head against a wall and all by yourself and just trying to, I don't know, I've been fighting losing battles since the 80s. So this is feeling like there's momentum and all these fantastic people, and how could we possibly not succeed with all of you in the same room? So thank you to everybody.
And Father Charles, would you like to make any quick comments? You've been one of the early players.
Right. I just think I had to leave for a while because I had spiritual direction and I came back. But, you know, I look at this model now and I think back in 2000, well, we did the energy efficiency. We reduced our peak energy demand 60%, which resulted in further demand charge reduction. Then when I put the solar systems, you know, photovoltaics, wind turbine, all that stuff. But I had to do it out of the parish pocket. I mean, it was just, in those days back in 2001, it was just a small system. And now to see it up to scale, it is so exciting now. And you know, that I think the best is yet to come. So
Absolutely.
I get the
Thanks so
applaud
much.
as part of explaining, and I'm glad I'm quasi-retiring now to get back in the game myself.
Excellent. We'll look forward to it. Scott, do you want to take just a second or two? Any closing comment?
I thought the tapestry of presentations kind of put the whole puzzle together for any of the listeners. And feel free to reach out to me or any of the folks that presented today. I don't know if I should speak on that on behalf of everybody, but I put my email, my phone number in the chat. And I'd be happy to work directly with anybody with anything I can help with. I'd probably just direct them to Diana Murray, but
Sounds great, Scott. Thanks so much. David Lewis, I don't know if you're back with good audio, but anything you want to say before we close?
No, I think it was covered, and you know,
Not going to happen.
That's how he sounds all the time.
Forget it, David. It's not going to work. All right, everybody, let's call that a wrap. I think there's a good possibility we could be willing to do this again. So be in the game. Help us get this to scale. As people of faith, as people of good hearts, it is game on, and looking forward to your successes.
Is Dave calling
good?
from the space station?
What?
Was Dave calling from the space station?
Who knows? He's such a good guy. Yeah, I'm sure he had many wonderful things to say. All right, everybody, goodbye. Go enjoy the day.
Thank you. Bye.
Solar Faithful
Thank
team,
you.
I'm going to
Bye.
suggest we get together sometime next week if you're still here. Goodbye.